Good evening, everyone, and welcome to my webinar series, Tuesday Traces. I am so excited to be back. Last week, I had a slightly different format due to the Golf Inc. Virtual Summit. So many of you texted and called me that I was really feeling the love and happy that we have this platform to connect and talk about the V1 pressure mat powered by BodyTrack. That's the purpose of Tuesday Traces webinars, to share information about how the technology can give us feedback about how we are interacting with the ground and what that means for our golf swing and the mechanics of our bodies. You're going to learn a lot about that tonight. I have some really awesome guests tonight, so I know that all of you are going to want to watch this again. After my team edits out all of our cuss words, we will have the recording available on our YouTube channel. To all of my friends that registered through the Zoom link, we will automatically send that link to you, the recording link to you via email. If you have questions, please put them in the chat window. We have a chat window in our Zoom meeting. We also have the chat in the Facebook. Please put your questions there. My team will feed them to me. We will do our best to answer all of the good and funny questions. We'll leave the silly ones for later. For 25% off of our V1 Golf Plus and V1 game, please use the code Tuesday in all caps. The team will put that in the chat. But if you're interested in a discount on our new V1 game, which is an awesome shot tracking app, or V1 Golf Plus, use the code Tuesday. Okay, really quickly, a little bit about V1. V1 Sports is a 25-year-old company. We are the leader in delivering video analysis and instruction solutions to golfers and golf instructors around the world. BodyTrack is a partner of V1 Sports, and the BodyTrack mat is fully integrated with V1 software. I get to work with and learn from probably the coolest and most spectacular people every day. Specifically, Terry Hashimoto is not only an amazing resource, but also my friend. I am Mandy Von C. I'm a sales manager for V1 Sports. I am based in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina. I am a beginner golfer. I am super passionate about great customer service and being a part of a great team. I get to put this very cool BodyTrack technology in the hands of golfers and golf instructors all over the world. And with the rest of you joining us, I get to learn about how we can improve our swing by understanding how we are interacting with the ground. Okay, everybody that knows me, I have to show it. I have permission to show it, but everybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge cut up, and I love this video of our guest tonight. And I have to show it really quickly. I took a little snip, and here it is.
Oh no.
So I had to share it, Jamie. It's too funny not to share. Okay, really cool. Okay, so now a more formal introduction of my guests. They are all from Canada. First is my friend Terry Hashimoto, mad scientist and king of pressure. Terry is the founder of Jazz Golf in Canada, co-developer of the BodyTrack golf pressure mat, and inventor of the world's first inertial measuring unit for golf. He was named the Manitoba Amateur Golfer of the Year 3 times and was a finalist 5 more times through a 22-year-old span. He attended the University of Miami on a scholarship and won 7 college tournaments before playing professionally on the Canadian Tour. Terry is absolutely, definitely the resource for science, for the science behind ground force mechanics in the golf swing, and I could not be more grateful and excited to be spending the next hour with him. After Terry reviewed some of the swing videos that we are featuring tonight, we called in some biomechanics backup. We are very, very, very grateful that Dr. Peter MacKay, on the fly, has time to join us tonight. He is a founding member of the Titleist Performance Institute Advisory Board and has been featured on the Golf Channel in his role as a world-renowned expert in biomechanics in the golf swing. Dr. MacKay brings a unique combination of expertise in golf biomechanics and injury prevention to his work. And please, without further ado, let me welcome a member of the V1 Sports family and 2-time world long drive champion, Jamie Sadlowski. Jamie took the title back back-to-back in 2008 and 2009 and won it twice as a junior as well. He's from Alberta, Canada, and he grew up playing hockey, and now he's playing the PGA Tour. He is one of the longest drivers in the world with a personal best of 4:45. Holy mackerel, that's a long drive. Jamie uses V1 Sports swing analysis software and the V1 pressure mat powered by BodyTrack for his training. We have recently moved to a new V1 Sports headquarters, and I'm sorry, Jamie, but we are not inviting you to the new lab after I saw what happened with the Golf Channel set twice. Just kidding. Just kidding. I would absolutely invite you to the lab. Just kidding. So I'm so happy you guys are all here. Thank you. Thanks for listening to my little intro. I hope I did everyone justice. Thanks for being here tonight, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So Jamie, I want to start off with just a little basic question about, can you tell us a little bit about your current golf game?
Yeah, obviously it's kind of different times right now. They had canceled our season on PGA Tour Canada. So I flew home. I spent my winters in Phoenix, and I flew home March 8th, and then all this stuff kind of started. So I've been stuck at home. I live in a town of about 5,000 people, so very limited resources to say the least. No driving range. It's pretty much step on the first tee and play golf. So I haven't, been hitting balls like I do when I'm in Arizona. But I would say that, I've had a lot of time to, going back from long drive to playing now, I've had enough time to analyze a lot of things I used to do, things I want to do, and things I want to change. So that's a good thing. My game is okay right now. But obviously during, snow is going to be flying here pretty soon. So it's been a weird summer. It's the longest I've ever been home since I've probably been living with my parents when I was 16. But yeah, I mean, been working with the pressure mat a little bit, and the little bit of time that I have had with here, and it's obviously been a huge tool for me so far.
Awesome. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. And no offense, but I know there's not very many driving ranges that you can go just practice at, right? I saw there's not very many that you can just go swing balls, right?
Yeah, it's finding enough land has always been a problem. It doesn't matter. I would say Alberta's a little bit better than California, but it's still kind of hard to come by. There's always roads involved and houses, so it is very difficult to hone in the long game, I would call it.
That's like long drive problems.
Exactly. First world long drive problems.
And for everyone watching, Jamie is a member of the V1 Sports family. He does have the V1 Sports software and is using the pressure mat. Can you just talk a little bit about why did you decide to add the BodyTrack mat to your training regime?
Yeah, well, I've always used the V1 app for swing analyzing. It's always been super easy to use, and for me, easy is great. And then a couple months ago, I've been sitting at home not doing much, and I thought, if while I'm here, I may as well start focusing on other things. And I literally, the day after I sent an email to V1 Sports, Brian Finnerty called me and said, "Hey, we'd love to send you a mat." So you guys do a great job with taking care of your customers and clients, so I appreciate that. But I think as a golf professional, there's always ebbs and flows, and for me, my biggest thing is when I'm playing well, the lower body is working great, ground forces are great. When I'm not, they're not great. So if I could get traces to where I'm hitting it what I feel is great and have those traces, and then when I get to struggling and I can match the two traces up, well, that makes my life as a golf professional very easy. When you're looking at something and you have your iPad in front of you and you're on the mat and your traces looking a lot different, well, it's easy to pick out what's wrong and how we're going to fix it. Because the backswing's one thing, but to me, the pressure, and the downswing for me coming from long drive, it's a totally different golf swing versus, trying to hit it and find it now. So, it's going to make my life of the ebbs and flows much easier in figuring out what's going good. And when it goes good, I'm going to have those traces. And when it's bad, how can we get back to the good traces?
Well, sounds like a pretty good segue, right, Terry?
Well, it really is. I was talking to Jamie earlier this morning. I'd like to talk about Peter here, and the reason I asked Peter to join, and Peter, thanks, Dr. Peter MacKay. When we deal with traces, this sort of Z trace pattern that we call it, we're getting into athleticism at its highest level in order to be able to sustain the pressure that you put on your body. And I asked Pete to join us so that he could explain on a medical basis what the athletes are actually enduring and some of the challenges that we face. And Peter, thanks for joining us today, because I don't have that skill set. Yeah.
All right.
So Peter, Jamie, if it's okay, can we take a look at your trace that you were kind enough to send us and discuss? And Pete, chime in, and Jamie as well. I just want to show you what I saw when I saw that trace. And this was earlier in and around when Jamie had hurt his ankle. Now, a lot of people think that, let's go to Jamie, which is the 100. There you go. So you're going to see the white dot. If we go to the trail side, we're going to scroll this. That's the center of pressure. And the CLP is going to go. Now, when that white dot's all the way back, the lead arm should be parallel to the ground on the way back. He's late getting that he's late getting his lead arm to parallel. So in other words, he's staying back a lot. You can see is at the top of the swing, and the white dot's still at the top of this on the trail side. So he's late. Now he's going to be late getting pressure to the lead side. So go ahead and keep rolling the tape to the lead toe. This is basically a heel to toe trace with severe backup. Now what's interesting, when the lead arm is parallel to the ground on the way back, the pressure is already still on the lead side. And that pressure should be already moving way back. So keep on rolling tape. And at impact, you're going to see the pressures all hanging back. Now, the very first thing, I had to look at this very carefully. I looked at it a few times. And Jamie's head was back and down. So I could only assume, and Peter, your help here is welcome. Maybe you can explain the difference between center of mass and center of pressure.
Well, without getting into that, Terry, I think it's important to clarify here with Jamie. One of the things that I've seen in his swing in the past is that he tends to change his trail foot pivot, and it's almost like he's got a turbo boost. And I haven't seen this video yet, so I have to admit, and I don't know that he's doing it, but I thought you were going to present that today, Terry. One of the things I've seen with Jamie, and Jamie, I don't know if you're aware of it, but your trail foot, instead of what most guys will do, most traditional swings, are going to pivot onto the ball of their foot with their trail foot as they get through impact. And what you do, Jamie, which I think is probably a turbo boost for you, is you tend to evert your trail foot instead of letting it pivot forward. Have you recognized that before? Or has anybody ever pointed it out to you?
Yeah, I've seen it, and there's certain videos where it's a little bit different, and whether it's slight injury at the time or whatever it is, but it has deviated over the years. I'm not positive when this video was taken. I want to say it's like 2013-ish, and I was battling a left ankle injury, so I was kind of protecting it. But,
Okay.
there was times where that right knee would actually come out and go towards the target more, and this one's a lot more delayed than it has been.
Right. It is pretty unique, and I think it's part of the reason why you create so much speed is that you have that little turbo boost. And I thought, Terry, that's what you were going to bring up tonight, his ability to break on that trail side.
We are, but I want to point out a few things that I saw in this trace. And Anna, I want you to get back to the address position, please.
Okay.
So, the key things I'm looking for, let's go right to the address. So when that lead arm is parallel to the ground on the way back, that white dot should be moving forward. So now go with lead arm parallel to the ground on the way back. And you can see that's hanging back there. You see, stop right there. That when the lead arm is parallel to the ground on the way back for a long hitter, that pressure dot will already be moving forward. Now that's break point number one. If we were converted, if he had access to the vertical forces in this time, in 20, whenever this capture was made, I can tell you from experience that at this position in the COP trace, that's his max downward pressure on his trail side, and that's too late. Now go to the top, the left, now keep rolling forward. Now when the lead arm is parallel to the ground on the way down, that white dot should already be forward, like backwards. Keep on going. So he's up now. The pressure here is moving backwards late. He's too late getting in the back. But at this point, go back to the peak. I want Anna, go back to the peak. Keep on going. Keep on going. Right there is good. So he's already peaking. Go forward a little bit. This is going to be downward pressure on his lead side. This is break point number 2. And that shouldn't occur until the lead arm is parallel to the ground on the way down. He's braking too hard on his lead side too early. Now he has no brake, no third brake. I'm going to show you how I see that peak. Keep on rolling to when until the white dot, until he's past impact. He has no third brake. The third brake occurs when the peak is right over there on the trail side. Now, if we go to Berkshire, I'm going to explain this. If we go to 99, and Jamie, I hate to draw comparisons, but I just need to show you the third brake. Here's Kyle's first brake. Go to the trail side. Go to now. See right there, his lead arm is already, the white dot's already moving forward when his lead arm is parallel to the ground. He's past his first brake point. That's the downward vertical force. Go back to when it's on the trail side all the way. There you go. His lead arm is not even parallel to the ground on the way back. So that pressure is moving forward very early. Keep on going. Go to the next break point, which will be at the peak on the left. Now keep on going. Keep on going. His lead arm is parallel to the ground on the way down. Now he's going to reach his third break point. Keep on going. Just a little bit to where it's on the right foot. Now look at this. Now the white dot moves forward. That means his mass is moving forward. And at impact, we actually capture impact perfectly here. Keep on going go roll back to impact. Now, if I lost everybody, I'll review that. But what Kyle does better than anybody I've ever seen who hits the ball massively long, his third break occurs prior to impact. In other words, his mass is moving forward. In the case of Jamie, and that long time ago, his mass was moving backwards at impact, putting him into a bad posture at impact. And Berkshire is almost vertical at impact. His body, his elbow, his shoulder, his elbow, his wrist, his hip, and his knee and his ankle are all in line. And this is courtesy of Steve Cox from PGA National. So this was the first time that I really noticed of the third break happening early. And it happens when that white dot's on the top trail side, and you can see it's before impact. Go back to that far trail side. Keep on going forward now. We're all the way. Keep on going. Go forward. Take the club back. And this is the third break. Keep on going. Take it back. Take it back. Scroll. Break point number 1. Break point number 2 coming up. Keep on going.
Terry, can you hold that?
Right there. Go back a millisecond. Go back a millisecond. That's where that white dot was at the trail at the top of the right-hand side. That's break point number 3. And it goes forward prior to contact, meaning that his mass is moving us forward. As far as we can tell, without having the proper diagnostic tools, his center of mass is moving forward in conjunction with the trace. And that to me is the difference between absolutely balls out 100% performance and not performance. So his joints are aligned. Peter, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah. So Terry, what you pointed out here is in the case of Jamie's older swing, I'm not seeing it in the one I just saw, but where he would evert that trail foot, that was his attempt to try to, because he was hanging back, that was his attempt perhaps to try to create the break, right? Whereas if his mass had been moving forward like Kyle's is here, he wouldn't have had to do that.
Exactly.
So we're up to interpretation here, and it's definitely an interesting point to see that perhaps what Jamie was doing was a compensation.
Yes.
And the other thing that I would say that would tend to create problems in the left shoulder area too. That's
Well, and you're the expert here, Pete, so I'm going to ask you and Jamie this, that Jamie, anybody ever talk to you about dorsal and plantar flexion when you were becoming a power hitter?
Not really, no. I mean, technology 10 years ago wasn't as great as it is now, obviously, but
And,
you know,
and so to me, what I saw in that previous, in Jamie's swing, Pete, was a great athlete that was hanging back. It didn't have enough strength in his trail side to get the pressure going forward. And I that would be my understanding of it. But feel free to interpret.
what would be, Terry, can I ask, so what would be the net of that for Jamie then? Are we talking about generating more speed, more efficiency, being safer? What are you saying?
Okay, so what I saw here with Kyle is that, I mean, if you go a couple of frames forward, there's no question his hips are open 45 to 50 degrees at impact. If you go to impact, you're going to see his hips are open. And if you're with me still, just roll tape to impact, and you're going to see you can see his right butt cheek at impact.
Mhm.
And he's wearing pretty tight pants, but you can still see those hips are at least 45 to 50 degrees open. Let's go back to video 100 and let's go to impact. And as well as I can see it, and I was talking to Jimmy about this today, the only consistent thing I've ever seen on with hip rotation at impact, you've got to be at least 45 to 50 degrees open at impact. I would bet my last dollar that he's not more than 25 or 30 degrees open there.
Well, hold that right there, Terry, because that's exactly what's happening is if the hips aren't clearing, if you look at his right foot, his trail foot here, this is where he ends up torquing into eversion. Does everybody follow me with eversion? That's where you're dorsiflexing, you're bending your foot up and out versus the opposite of having a sprained ankle where it buckles over to the outside. An eversion is when it goes up and out. So if you watch his right foot, if his hips aren't clearing properly, he's going to depend on that right foot for stability.
Exactly. And now this is gonna. I probably lost a couple of people there, but I sent over Mandy a really crude trace of the 3 breaks. There is a third break in a super long hitter's swing, and it occurs prior to impact. And that's what Kyle did better than Jamie did in 2000 and whatever year that was. Now, in fairness to Jamie, he had an injury that, he dropped the weight on his foot or something to that effect. But this to me is a significant, we didn't know this 5 years ago, Pete. We didn't have a clue about this. I didn't anyways. But his hips give this away. And I just thought it was interesting. Now, where I was going to go with Jamie, and I still will, do we really need to do the Z trace? Like you have an example with Troy Mullins where she keeps all the pressure on her lead side and she hits the 340, 360 quite regularly. She doesn't back up and then go forward. An average human being will break on their trail side on the way back early before the lead arm is parallel to the ground. And then they'll break before the lead arm is parallel to the ground on the way down. And then the super long ball hitter who does this Z trace, they have to break again as they're going backwards on the inside of their right foot of their trail foot, and or the mass won't go forward. And now, Pete, you tell me, but if my spine's bent like this as I'm moving forward, how's that on my back?
But let me ask you this, Terry. Until you pointed this out today, whenever I looked at Jamie's swing, and it was a long time ago, I interpreted that as his right foot giving him an extra vertical push on that late break. That's what it looked like to me. It looked like he was getting another push off that right side. So it's left, right again.
Now,
you know what I'm saying?
but to me, it's because he had an injury. His hips couldn't clear because the position of his left foot was restricting the clearance, and or his dorsiflexion wasn't such that it could actually do it, and he's compensating by rolling over.
Right.
I don't know. No, this is, I told you it'd be a little complicated today. Not complicated. I wanted to talk about this in a more intelligent way because all the time we just look at the traces. But I'd like you to bring up Troy Mullins and Jamie, this is for you because, I mean, you're still young, but as we get older, this type of trace, in my opinion, is not necessary. This to me is my optimal trace for longer distance, because keep in mind, I built shafts, I built golf clubs for a living well before I was in pressure mapping business. And Troy, to me, and Jamie, you're the one this morning that when we talked, you said you were using super long clubs, super heavy, and they were really a pain in the butt, more or less. But today's clubs are much lighter. You can instead of going to super length, why not just make it shorter? Keep all the pressure on the lead side and hold it there. Be more asymmetrical as an athlete. If you're going to be a long drive hitter, you may not walk when you're 65 years of age like I am, but you'll be a world champion. But you may have to be more asymmetrical. And Peter, that's my question to you and Jamie.
Well, most elite athletes are more than a little asymmetrical,
Right.
But the point is, it's not about, how far you hit it. It's about how long you hit it far if you're going to make any money, right?
Yeah.
So, and Jamie's got other aspirations here too. So
Exactly. Wants to be true.
I'm always reluctant to try to drive the Ferrari at 220 miles an hour all the time. But I think, go ahead. You want to show Troy's swing here and go through it, or let's ask Jamie what he thinks about what you've said so far, Terry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense. And I think, when I was competing, one thing I never did was tie my shoes, because as I started, somewhat unloading the trail side, I always wanted my left foot to open and get out of the way. And that was a big thing for me. Like, I didn't tie my shoes until I, broke my ankle in 2013 or 14. And I just felt like when that lead foot would open, it would take all the pressure off the left knee and the left hip for me. And I struggled when I tied my shoes. I felt like I was almost stuck. So, I think that was the first time I've ever been on a pressure mat before. And, until I got the pressure mat about a month ago, I hadn't been on it again. So I didn't understand ground forces. And to be honest, from the years 2003 to 2015, the only time I saw my swing was during the World Championships when I watched the broadcast. But other than that, I never analyzed anything. My agent actually wouldn't let me, and he didn't want me to know anything about the golf swing. It was all, natural ability. So there was no thought. I never worked on any positions in the swing. It was just self-taught, homegrown move that I'd always used. And, obviously it wasn't as efficient as it could have been, and if I knew what I know now, then who knows,
Well,
one thing I'd say about that, Jamie, is that feeling with your left foot is natural because of the vertical forces going through to the left side. And that's why you'll see a lot of guys jump back, right? And that's the exact opposite of what a handicap golfer will do. A handicap golfer will thrust and the pelvis will move towards the target line, right? That's what we call thrust, an early extension, right? You guys would do just the opposite because your vertical forces were so aggressive that would be starting the kinetic link. You've heard of kinematic sequence, right?
Yeah.
The thing that you guys do well is you line up your kinetic forces so well. They happen in the right time. So as you're pushing into that mat, say, and that causes your left foot to go backwards and your butt's going backwards at the same time, versus the handicapper who starts with the pelvis moving forward, he's thrusting and he's got no connection with the ground at all. You see?
Right.
That's a natural feel you had. And I got to be honest with you. I think the fact that you stayed away from having a lot of instruction when you were older is one of the main reasons you're sitting here right now. You learned how to do it, and that's a lot easier to do when you don't have too much information coming in.
But we don't recommend that you never film your swing. By the way,
no, hang on. So I want a chance to summarize Jamie's first swing that we showed, because we talked about it. So in plain language, what I said to Jamie was, you're hanging back, you didn't get the pressure to the lead side quick enough, and your center of mass was moving backwards at impact. That's my summary. And then my summary for Berkshire is that he gets the pressure to the trail side really quick. It gets to the lead side very quick. And then he continues to move forward, unlike in the first example where Jamie, we're at the early stages of his career. And his center of mass continues to move forward because he pushes it forward with the third break on his trail side. It's right in front of us. It's there. I mean, that's self-evidence. And the other thing is now, when what you're talking about, Pete, and this is, and I don't mind if you shoot me down here. You're my friend, and I don't mind, because I've always said that when they trap and clear the pressure, they've got nowhere else to go up. Okay, so I don't believe that. I think it's bullshit that and Jamie, you're gonna tell me right off the top, you jump. Okay, so you jump straight up. I don't know. Do you jump on an angle? What degree do you jump on? I mean, I think it's trap and clear, and they got nowhere to go. They go up. Pete, am I wrong or what? Am I just drinking
Say
too
that
much?
again, Terry. You say that
I
what?
think when a big hitter uses a Z trace, they
Right.
basically trap all their pressure on the lead side, and they've got nowhere to go, and they have to go up. It's not.
But also the torque, and that's why you see the left foot flare. If you're looking
Right.
at Bryson right now, anybody who's trying to adopt speed the way Jamie has, any of
Right.
these guys coming along on tour are going to end up, you're going to see that lead foot pivoting. And
Okay, so now talk
Backing
about
up.
Troy Mullins here, because now before you do that, I want to ask you a question. I promise I'll keep quiet on this. But Troy Mullins, to me, I've watched all of her, at least a long ball. I mean, she's a smaller, more diminutive lady. Troy Mullins is strong on her lead side. I'm not exactly sure of Jamie's physical stature, because he just looks like a massive, huge man to me. But Troy Mullins is massive on her lead side. If I was working with Jamie, which after this meeting, he probably won't even want to talk to me. But if I was working with Jamie, I would say to him, look, this is the swing that you want to emulate for long distance and power and control, because she doesn't necessarily, she's so strong on her lead side. She can hold it there. You describe this. This is your trace. Go ahead. Can you roll that, Anna?
want to roll it back. I don't know if there's any voiceover on this one, but I can talk you through it. So just take it back about position 2 there, and you'll see. Got a pretty traditional move here, but there's one, you see, so she's getting to her trail side, halfway back, trail side. And the critical thing here is it moves, and stop it right, keep going, right about there, just before her transition. You'll see that she becomes very centered as her club changes direction there in her transition, right? And so go ahead, let it move forward.
She's got a restriction right in that middle portion of her body.
Yeah. She backs up a little bit there. And now onto that lead side, breaks aggressively. And watch that finish. So she has had a few back problems. We worked on that with her as far as not getting in too much of the C posture, but she's a track athlete too, Jamie. I don't know if you realize that.
Yeah.
She's got unbelievable lower body strength.
Yeah.
So our goal here today was to talk to Jamie about, and the hypothesis of Mandy's project here was that we would share with you, Jamie, even if you didn't want it, what we thought you could do in the future to play better tour golf now that you're not 100%, competing long drive. And in my opinion, because you're a fellow Canadian and I really like you Albertarians, you guys paying all of our bills for us with your oil.
At least you guys recognize that.
Yeah, well, I recognize it, all right, I recognize it. But a little payback from the Maritimes to you is I recommend that you avoid this Z trace and work towards what Troy Mullins does, because you can hit it just as far with taking it back 75% to where you did in that original 2005 trace. And she's so strong on her lead side that she does have a little bit of a back injury. Peter knows it better than I do, and there are some restrictions. But she keeps it on the planet a little bit more regularly than some of the other girls trying to compete against. Just in a but Peter, talk to us about when you do go vertical. What are the how are you stressing out your spine and your back and your muscles and all that stuff?
Well, for long drive guys, it's very much about the triple extension. You know, Terry mentioned, Jamie, a minute ago about plantar flexion, right? You see at that finish position, you're getting into a push off with the ankles, a push off onto the toes. Well, think about that. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, with handicap golfers, they don't get that triple extension. They extend with the pelvis and they lift up and lose their posture, right? So they're not connected to the ground. So what you do really well as a natural explosive athlete is you tap into the ground. And Terry's picking up on a couple of things here, you know, as far as you moving forward with a more tour type swing. He's hit on a couple of really important points. You don't need the speed that you had to try to get to on the long drive, but you need to preserve your body. You need to prevent the injuries. And I would say you've got more than enough speed. And from what I've heard, you got a pretty good short game. So by taking this into account, you're going to be using your center of mass, moving your body a little bit more efficiently through impact. You're not going to be hanging back as much. You're not going to be as prone to back injuries. And all that is, you know, is money in the bank when it comes to playing on tour. From what I see, it's easier said than done, obviously, Terry, when you start to.
I mean, look,
because
it's
what we're doing here is changing timing. I mean, look at Phil Mickelson. We know forever that we've wanted to see him shorten his swing, right? The best he ever swung was when he won the British Open. And when he won the British Open, he was swinging his 3-wood like a 7-iron. It was incredible, right? But you can't just tell somebody, okay, I want you to stop here, because the golf swing is a complete fluid motion from start to finish. You can't just start to abbreviate things. So Jamie can't just all of a sudden start to shorten his swing. That's not the way it works, as we know.
Well, and that's true. And we don't have enough data here to summarize, but you know, based on the data that I have, my conclusion is, and Jamie, and take it any way you wish, and it's met as a friend, legitimately, and we just kind of met. But you know, what I'm seeing on tour, and Pete, you can add your whatever you think. But when that lead arm, as soon as the club is being taken back, the pressure is going to the pressure dot's already on the trail side going forward. I mean, you're in the sequence that I saw, and we discussed this. Your pressure hung back real late, and it didn't get forward until late. And you acknowledge that. You mentioned you had an experience, and you don't have to name the teacher, but you were working on something that wasn't quite working out for it. Maybe you can share that with the audience.
Yeah, I think like Dr. MacKay said, I think when you mess with someone's tempo, you take a lot of their DNA out. And you know, I've been pass parallel my whole life, you know, similar to John Daly. Like, you know, I've played with him in PGA Tour event before, and his 60-yard shot, his little flip that he hits in there goes past parallel. It's just who he is. So, you know, my tempo was pretty much 3-1 for us, you know, up to 2015. And then after a little bit of instruction and doing a million Hideki Matsuyama drills, you know, now like my golf swing's a little bit shorter, but the tempo is completely different. It's much slower. And, you know, for me being that slow, it's been harder to use the ground forces, you know, properly. You know, when you swing a certain way forever, and granted, yeah, I worked for a year and a half just on hitting, you know, flighted wedges and a lot of chippy stuff. And now when it's time to turn the speed up, I kind of struggle to do that because my tempo has gotten so much slower than it used to be.
I don't. The length of the swing, maybe I misspoke, but the tempo to me is something I wish more people would talk about, because that's so important. I'd hate to see you lose that tempo, but what I'd like to see you get done to play golf on the Mackenzie Tour and all over the world to be optimal is I think you need to get pressure to the lead side quicker than later. And you're late getting your pressure to the lead side and you hang back. Based on just the stuff that I've seen and trying to look at the videos and imagining based on not having the complete pressure picture. But when you get that to us, you know, be glad to share, you know, unbiased. I mean, there are certain things that are just, I see the winners doing. I look at those traces as restrictions. And when I look at Troy Mullins here in the middle of her trace, and I saw that Peter sent this to me as soon as he did this at Riviera. And I suggested to him there's some restrictions in the middle of her swing there. And he said, yeah, they knew that. And But if you could get rid of that, there'd be less restrictions and there'd be less wear and tear in their body. And Pete knows this. I mean, Pete's been teaching me from the get-go. I don't understand the medical terminology, but Pete does. Whatever she has to do to reduce that restriction, it's going to make it easier on her body, I would suspect.
Yeah, I mean, we crave efficiency, obviously. I mean, efficiency and, center strike, that's what it takes. So, I mean, obviously that's something that, I'm working on now, but, I wish I had traces from my current golf swing. Cause I mean, again, this was a long time ago, but it's changed a lot, but maybe it's worse, maybe it's better. Once, I'm able to get back on the mat and put some swings in, I'd really be curious to see the difference. And maybe there's similarities, maybe there's not. But one thing that, like, I've always known I've kind of hung back a bit. And, I guess that comes from a young age of being, 14 years old with a 50-inch club and being 130 pounds and swinging a heavy golf club and, trying to hit it up in the air with not a lot of loft. That could be a factor. And then, as I got stronger, I felt like it got a little bit better. But, and one thing I need to do a better job of, and, when you're a hangback guy like I am, sometimes what I think is I want to get my mass going forward, but it's a slide, which is not good.
No. We want you, when we talked this morning, you asked if there's one or two things that I could suggest that you could try, but unfortunately you couldn't get loose enough today, but it was too cold in St. Paul. Just kidding. But I suggested, in my opinion, based on what I saw, you needed more hip rotation and impact. So, I mean, there's lateral, rotational, and vertical. Peter, I named them all, but to me, your rotational forces, you have excessive lateral forces as opposed, and it's not common for me, these words to come out of my mouth, but I think you need to get your hips more open at impact so that you can increase those rotational forces. And
but Terry, that brings up the point for Jamie. He's got a default pattern built into his movements. The way his body moves is programmed. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you start making changes like this, I think that's why our technology like V1 and Body Track and is so important, because you can get feedback. Everybody's a field player. If people tell you they're not a field player, they're kidding themselves. We use our vision for 80%. It dominates our brain, our vision does. But the way most people learn is through feel, believe it or not. And Jamie has learned to feel where his body is in different parts of his swing, and it's an automaticity that's built in. So to change that's why technology is so important. You can defer to the technology and then occasionally compare what you're feeling to what you're seeing. It can't be a constant feedback. It's got to be the motor programming guys will tell you it's got to be feedback on a pertinent timing and spacing. And you got to have a coach that understands how to keep you in your wheelhouse and not have you over analyzing, right?
Well, let me take it.
Some really good things that I think you pointed out here, Jamie. The most important thing I think is that the hang back and a lot of that is not going to stand up to the rigors of what a tour player needs for accuracy and injury prevention.
Let's go to Jamie's online swing. I think it's 95 or 96.
Hey, well, we have a question, guys, while Anna pulls that video up.
No, that's not it.
I have a question for Jamie and a question for the guys. Ryan Groves would like to ask Terry and Peter, would you guys say for Jamie to actually speed up the arms on the way back, a la Sasha McKenzie?
Well, was the question, should he speed
Ryan
up?
Groves asked the question. Would you say for Jamie to actually speed up the arms on the way back?
I like his tempo the way it is, 3-1. But I mean, it is scientifically proven, according to Satchel, the faster the backswing, the faster the downswing. So I would have to say no in Jamie's case because he hits the ball so far. But
there you go.
That's just my opinion.
That's a perfect example, though, of taking data like what Sasha will teach. Great. Faster back. Nick Price, fast back, fast through. But the reality is the tempo has to be in ratio. And
right.
So if you start speeding up that back, what's he going to do on the way down? It's got to coordinate. It's got to be synchronized, right? So it's one of those things where you can't just say, speed it up going back. That could create a whole does he need to speed up his backswing? Possibly, but that's not how you fix it, just by speeding up the backswing.
Well, and the
Does that
one
make
thing,
any sense?
there's one thing, and I really want to get this out there because it's really a little bit radical. I'm pretty sure we got Jamie face on without being on the pressure mat. Maybe we don't. But I noticed that there we go. That previous 190, the previous one, not down the line. Watch his knee. Which way does it point on the way back? Go ahead and roll that tape. That's pretty good, but I'd like to see that lead knee point straight out towards the camera. Pete, I want your opinion on this. I really do, because I've had fun doing this with our athletes here. His lead knee goes up, but you see how his knee is still between the ankle and the knee. The bottom part of his leg is pointing towards his right hip. I mean, I'd like to see that come more full out as opposed to stop that lateral motion. I think it'll increase his hip turn back, and it'll increase which will, I think, increase his hip turn going forward. I just want your opinion. It's out there, I know, but I just want your thoughts.
No, I'm sorry. What you're saying will absolutely reduce his hip turn on the way back. But again, we're picking things apart here and trying to. When you start taking things apart like that, the sum of the parts doesn't equal the whole. Jamie's swing is based on a lot of idiosyncratic things. If you ask him to keep that knee pointing forward more, it could set off a whole chain reaction of right-sided internal hip pain. Who knows, right? So I don't like picking things apart and saying, do this. I like to say, let's look at the big picture. Let's look at the data. And let's make sure the coach is allowing Jamie to feel the difference as he moves. That's what's critical, right?
Right.
And I hate working off just one video like this, like a frontal shot, and not having the down the line to look at. And
We've got the down the line.
we got no force plate data. We got no vertical data. Yeah.
I know.
Okay, let's look at that one.
I just am trying to figure out a way to get Jamie's hips more open at impact. And I don't like it when that lead knee goes to their trail side. I've seen too much lateral motion in conjunction with rotational forces, and only Justin James I've seen can really time that properly. That's a hard time in sequence. And I mean, when I see that lead knee to the trail side, to me, that's too much lateral motion. And you just can't get, and you're going to hang back, and you can't rotate your hips fast enough to get to 45 degrees at impact. And that's the consistent common denominator that I've seen at impact. If you're not open 40 or 45 degrees, you're not hitting it solid all the time. It just ain't going to happen.
So would you say, Terry, that with the way that is at the top of the golf swing, would you say that there's too much weight on the trail side early?
It's there late, and you're gonna keep it there late, because you can't get. If you were in this position right now, and we were just fooling around, I'd be yelling, hammer down, squash the bug, hammer down.
Yeah.
But this is why I asked Pete to join me, because Pete would be saying to me, Terry, are you fucking stupid? You're gonna kill the guy, but that's why we need to work together so that we don't get you hurt. And, it's easy for me to get excited and say to you, look, I'm pretty sure if you do this, the trace is going to be better. Your hips will be more solid impact. But we need to work with guys like Peter, a chiropractor, a biomechanic, an expert in physiology, because I ain't that guy. And that's really why I asked Peter to help me out here, because I could hurt somebody, and I don't want to do that. That's why I don't suggest those things unless I'm with somebody like that. That's the truth.
From what I've seen of Jamie's body, he's pretty much capable of doing whatever it takes, right? I don't see physical limitations, at least, and I've only seen him once in an emergency situation. I don't see physical limitations being an issue with why his golf swing is the way it is, and I don't see it preventing him from making changes that can be beneficial. So.
Okay, cool. And, I really have nothing to add further. I know that we've, I'm sure that Jamie's got some stuff. Sorry to, But to me, this has been fascinating because you to watch your journey, Jamie, from a long ball champion to playing on the tour. That we a lot of people like me have always thought that should happen more often than not. You've got such an advantage. But Troy Mullins, to me, when there's more, there's powers. We've got more long drive traces than just can't show them all. But they don't all have Z traces. The big strong guys on the lead side, and they can hold it there, and they seem to keep it on the planet longer and hit the ball just as far. So
yeah, I agree with that. So the takeaway there, Jamie, Terry, is simplify it and remove some of the variables. As you see, what you're seeing right now with Bryson is he takes his lead forearm and supinates it. All right. So now he's not going to have to do that through impact. He's taken that variable out of it. So Jamie's got a complex move based on very athletic ability and based on the fact that he wanted to hit it off the planet. And in large, he hit it a lot straighter than a lot of those other guys. I've seen a lot of guys that miss a grid 15 times in a row. What are you going to do with that? Right.
Nothing. And so, my summary, and Mandy and Jamie and Peter, my summary is that if you want to use a Z trace, the only way to do it right is to have the third break, which has to happen prior to lead arm parallel to the ground and the way down. And that third break is the trail foot pushing you forward so that your COM is going forward in conjunction with your COP. That's my summary of the Z trace. But my also summary, which I think is more important than the first summary, is that Z trace is short term. You're going to need to see Dr. Peter MacKay, which is why I asked him on board, because if you do that Z trace long term, you're going to hurt your body, and there's really nothing in it for you much past when you're 40.
Terry, all of our pros that are tuned in are all agreeing with you, just so you know.
Oh, cool.
Hey, Jamie, I have one question from someone overseas. It's not related to the ground. Jamie, early on you used to flex your left wrist, but later a bit flatter. Have you tried the bow wrist to gain strength in your left wrist?
I haven't ever messed with any supination or bowing or anything like that. One thing I have changed a lot is I used to have a much stronger grip when I was competing. And over time, I didn't ever want to hook the ball again. Playing professional golf, it's the last thing you want to do is hit hooks. So other than changing the left wrist a little bit and maybe a little less underneath with the right hand, the grip has weakened a little bit, but that's as far as I've ever taken it. Honestly, it happened kind of naturally because I went to some really huge golf grips, and without even thinking about it, every time I'd work with my guy, he'd be like, wow, your grip is looking a lot better than it used to. And I think it was just due to having like a mid-sized MC +4 with 6 wraps under it. I think it just happened naturally, whether that was a good thing or not. But my grip has definitely improved.
Nice. And Jamie, tell us about are you headed back to Arizona? What's your next event? What are you doing next?
Yeah, hopefully. Obviously, with the border being closed, it's kind of a complex situation. I'm not the type of guy that can go sit somewhere for 2 weeks in a padded room. I'll go crazy. But hopefully, in the next little while, things kind of go back to normal here, and I'm able to get back to practicing, the way I was, before March 8th when I came home. I got a lot of new stuff to work on.
Yes, you do. We would really like to see your traces, some new body track traces, maybe in a month or two, and show what we've learned here tonight. That would be really
absolutely
cool.
100%. I would like to see him too. So
that's awesome.
Definitely curious.
As you're using the body track match, save those swings and make sure we get all 3 graphs sent over to Terry.
Absolutely. Hopefully they're better than that first one we analyzed.
It wasn't.
Well, that's okay. That's from 2013. And you guys, everyone watching, you should know that trace is that we saw is from 2013. So that is a very, very long time ago.
Peter, can I ask Peter one question? Peter, top drill for working on strengthening your ankles so that you can accommodate this vertical jump on the lead side.
A good drill.
Yeah, good drill, good exercise
I'll
program.
tell you, what I've been working with lately, Jamie, is a lateral trainer called the Helix, and it's unbelievable. It teaches you to keep your center of mass in relation to your contact points. You can feel the inside, outside of your ankles. I don't know if you've used it at all, but it's like a skating action. You'll love it. As an old hockey player myself, it's the best cross trainer I've ever seen. It's called the Helix lateral trainer. And you do your abductors when you go one way, and you do your adductors when you go the other way. Most of the cardio stuff we do does not. And with the COVID, I've had a lot of players getting on Pelotons, and they're messing up their backs because everything is requiring flexion, extension, backward and forward. That's the spine's enemy. What we want to do is create stability in our lateral hips and our inner thighs. And the lateral trainer, man, that's the thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, after playing junior hockey for 3 or 4 years, the last thing I'll ever do is get on another bike, because that was, we did it every day and every night and after skating. And I swear to God, that's, a lot of back pain comes from riding a bike.
I can't tell you how many players I've had that would get into cycling, and I've had calls in the middle of tournaments. I'd say, get him on the bike, and he gets on the bike, and I hear him screaming in the background. Oh, it must have been the bike. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know that, though. I mean, I was always told, after I got done playing, I told myself I will never sit on another bike again, because it's the worst. But yeah, back pain, you name it, tight hip flexors, just no good.
I say we get everyone on a body track mat, not a bike.
Listen, I want to ask Jamie a question, because I called him this morning to see if they're like, when those, you're so past the way your wrist, man. I asked him if he was double jointed, but what about grip strength, Jamie? What do you do to, keep the strength in your hands so efficient, if anything?
A lot of like wrist roller stuff. But, I trained every muscle when I was competing in long drive. I mean, I'll send you a deadlift video. I mean, in my peak, I was at 165 pounds. I could deadlift 500 pounds with a trap bar. But, at that weight, it's pretty good. So I was training every part of my body. I mean, my neck, you name it. And now, I still work out and try to keep everything. It's all about being functional now. I have the speed. It's about preventing injury. It's about, prolonging a career. So I don't do the heavy deadlifts, the heavy squats. I still deadlift and squat, but not like I used to. I mean, back in the day, the amount of chin-ups, it was kind of like a 3-stage or 3-exercise workout. I'd kill the squats, I'd kill the deadlifts, and I'd kill the chin-ups and pulls and pull-ups. I mean, those were the 3 exercises that, I did those religiously. But you can't stand on the range and hit golf balls all day and expect to go lift weights like that. It doesn't work. And obviously, from my prime of like 2008, 2009, just winning, a lot has changed since, that time to now. And obviously there's a lot better ways to train. You don't have to do a bunch of Olympic lifts and that old style of training. So that's stuff that I'm learning as I'm getting out of my stubborn old ways of just doing things one way, which, I got a lot of Ukrainian in me, and we're kind of stubborn. So I'm trying to get out of those habits.
My mom's maiden name is Yarima, so I'm half Jap, half Ukrainian, so I get it.
Yeah, you understand the stubbornness that Ukrainians hold. It's hard to break.
Yeah. What about flexibility, Pete? How does a guy like Jamie maintain that flexibility over his head, that arms? How the hell do you get your arms straight up like that, Pete?
Well, the flexibility has a trade-off with stability, right? All the flexibility doesn't do you any good if you can't stabilize the movement. So Jamie's smart enough to have known that. And one of the things that happens with the handicap golfers that are worried about flexibility is that, it's sequencing. Often they can't lift their arms, but it's because they're not turning their torso, right? So I can show a 90-year-old golfer how to get into a position to hit a golf ball, but not if they just try to lift their arms, right? So flexibility is obviously important, but as we know, we go through the strata of posture, alignment, mobility, stability, coordination, strength, and endurance. Those are the physical parameters, right? And I like your flex bars. I love them for wrist strength, dynamic wrist strength, where you're getting an acceleration, deceleration with your flex bars. I was using them this morning in the clinic.
Yeah, no, those are great.
Slingshot drill.
I think, Mandy, going forward, as you do more and more of these great seminars with fellows like Jamie, and hopefully more with Jamie, you really need to have a fellow like Dr. Peter on there, because when you get into these types of load unload profiles, and that's the thing that I've learned most about using Body Track over the past decade, is we've been able to absolutely figure out what shaft you should use, Jamie. And, you know, sidebar, when you get a chance, once we get your traces, more information, we've developed the a fitting system for shafts just based on the load unload profile that we see not only in the vertical chart, but also in the velocity chart. And it's very specific and it's very real. I'm much more comfortable talking about shafts than I am talking about pressure traces, and I'm very comfortable talking about pressure traces. So when you're ready, you know, and so, I mean, I'm just being honest. It's no bullshit. I know how to do that stuff like the back of my left hand. So, you know, when you guys are, I got nothing to add. I've, you know, talked a lot. Maddie, God damn it, have these things earlier, for Christ's sake. It's 10 o'clock at night over here where I live.
Well, Terry, it's when all the golf pros are done teaching, they can tune in and hear all the wonderful things you're teaching them.
Yeah,
but I will wrap up because we're at our hour mark, and I know Jamie has a radio interview here shortly. So I would like to say thank you, Terry and Dr. Peter MacKay, and Jamie, thank you so much. And Jamie, listen, it is okay to film your swing. We want you to continue to film.
Well, now I do.
To be
now
one software.
Every day, so.
Film your swing, film the trace, please send it on, and we will absolutely have you back so we can see how you're doing. And safe travels. And thanks to all my Canadian friends for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate all your
Everybody.
phone
Have
insight.
a great night.